Ready for a deep dive that might just flip the script on how you think about building products?
Always up for a good challenge? What are we diving into?
Someone sent in this article, and the title alone, Building Generalized Solutions is Killing Your Product. It's like a punch to the gut of conventional product wisdom, right?
Yeah, I'm seeing that title and I'm already intrigued. Who wrote this?
Vyacheslav Kovalevsky.
Okay, and he's coming at this from, what's his background?
He's got a ton of experience, tech leadership, building teams, the whole 9 yards. So he's seen this firsthand.
Okay, so not just some ivory tower theory. He's been in the trenches.
Exactly. And it's that experience, I think, that makes this article so compelling. Because he's not just saying generalized solutions are bad. He's really digging into why we keep falling into that trap, even when it might be the exact opposite of what helps a product succeed.
All right, so what's the core argument here? What's the alternative to this build for everyone mentality we always hear about?
So Kovalevsky uses this really interesting story to illustrate his point. He introduces us to two tech leads, Romeo and James, both tasked with building this internal mentoring platform.
Okay, I'm already sensing some archetypes here. Romeo, James, lay it on me.
Right. You can't help but root for Romeo a little bit, just based on the name, right? But anyway, Romeo takes this really user-oriented approach, hyper-focused on one specific customer's needs, lots of iteration, getting something usable out there fast, even if it's not perfect.
Okay, the classic move fast and break things startup mentality.
Kind of, but there's more nuance to it. And if you got James, he's all about building that polished, broadly appealing product from day one, trying to anticipate what everyone might want right out of the gate.
The classic, if you build it, they will come approach.
Exactly. And I think what's so smart about how Kovalevsky lays this out is that he doesn't just talk about these approaches abstractly. He throws them into this really concrete scenario, building this mentoring platform.
Right, so we can actually track how these different mindsets play out in a real-world scenario.
Yeah, it's like a case study unfolding in real time.
So Romeo, he starts with this super bare-bones solution, like a simple intake form in a spreadsheet. Almost painfully simple.
Almost sounds like he's intentionally overfitting on that one customer, right? Like,
yeah.
How could that possibly scale to a larger market? That's exactly what I thought. But see, this is where the magic of that user-oriented approach starts to come into play, and where the story takes a turn you might not expect. Because Romeo's got this open line with his customer, right? He's constantly getting feedback, making tweaks based on real-world use, and he starts stumbling onto these features, these little nuances, that James, with his build-it-for-everyone approach, completely misses.
So he's iterating his way to a deeper understanding of the problem, not just what he thought the problem was at the start.
Exactly. And because he's moving so fast, he's able to get something that actually works, something that delivers real value to that one customer, way faster than James can even finalize his perfect solution.
So he's got momentum, he's got a foothold in the market, and he's learning like crazy with every iteration.
Right. And James, meanwhile, he's stuck in this loop of trying to anticipate what everyone might want, but without that real-world feedback, he ends up missing the mark.
And that's where I think a lot of products go wrong. They get so caught up in the hypothetical, the what if, that they lose sight of what actually matters to users in the here and now.
It's like that classic quote, a 100% complete product that nobody wants is a failure compared to a 20% complete product that people love.
Yeah, that stings a little.
Yeah.
But it's true. And this is where Kovalevsky brings in this concept of hindsight bias. Have you ever heard of that?
Vaguely. Isn't that like looking back and thinking you knew something all along even though you didn't?
Exactly. It's so easy to look back on a situation, especially a successful one, and think, oh, we should have just done that from the start. But that assumes we had all the information at the beginning, which is almost never the case.
We forget how much we simply didn't know when we started.
Right. And it's so easy to judge Romeo's approach in hindsight because we know how the story ends. But the reality is that messy, iterative process, the one that probably felt chaotic and uncertain at the time, that was the key to his success. He didn't have all the answers up front, but he was willing to figure it out as he went along.
Which is such a powerful lesson, and not just for building tech products, right? I mean, this applies to so many things in life.
Oh, absolutely. We get so caught up in trying to make the perfect decision to avoid any possibility of failure that we miss out on those valuable, often messy lessons we can only learn by actually doing the thing, even if it means stumbling along the way.
It makes you question that deeply ingrained fear of uncertainty, doesn't it? Like, what if that discomfort, that feeling of not having all the answers, is actually a signpost pointing us towards something truly innovative?
Totally. And Kovalevsky actually says something like that in the article. He says, the most valuable insights often emerge from the ashes of our initial assumptions. It's like you have to be willing to let go of what you think you know to make room for what you need to discover.
Which brings up another interesting point. If this user-focused approach is so effective, why do so many of us still default to building for the masses right out of the gate? What's the allure of that generalized solution? So why do we keep falling for it?
Well, Kovalevsky, he really digs into that. And honestly, some of it's just human nature, you know? Like,
Yeah.
first off, uncertainty. It's
Yeah.
just plain uncomfortable. We crave that feeling of having it all figured out.
Totally. Give me a spreadsheet, a 5-year plan, anything to make me feel like I'm not just wandering in the dark.
Exactly. And that's where data can be so seductive, right? Charts, graphs, survey results, they create this illusion of certainty, even if, and this is key, even if they're missing those crucial nuances, you can only really uncover through real-world use.
It's like we want to believe those numbers tell the whole story.
And that ties into Kovalevsky's second point. It's incredibly tough to measure what you don't know.
The opportunity cost of going too broad too soon.
Exactly. The downside of sticking with a generalized solution that misses the mark, you might not even realize what you've missed. But the waste of iterating, of going back to the drawing board after you thought you had it figured out, that stings.
It feels so much more real because you can measure the time and effort that went into it.
Right, and that plays right into our deeply ingrained tendency to avoid risk, even when, and I think this is Kovalevsky's main point, even when that risk might be the most direct path to building something truly great.
So for our listener out there, maybe feeling a little stuck in that cycle of chasing the perfect solution right from the start, what are some key takeaways here? How do we actually apply these UADP principles?
Well, Kovalevsky gives us a few really solid action steps. First and foremost, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Don't be afraid to seek out feedback early and often.
Even if it means showing someone something that feels really rough around the edges.
Especially then. Get something, anything, in front of users and just watch how they interact with it. See where they stumble, what questions they ask, what workarounds they try to create.
It's about shifting that mindset, isn't it? From trying to anticipate every possible need to actually observing how people use what you've created.
100%. And along those same lines, embrace the learning process. Like, really embrace it.
More than the need to appear like you have it all figured out.
Exactly. Those messy iterations, the times when you have to scrap something and start over, that's often where the real breakthroughs happen.
It's like that saying, fail fast and fail often. But with the emphasis on learning from those failures and then iterating based on what you discover.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And lastly, and this might be the most important one, find yourself a partner, not just a customer. Someone who's invested in your success and willing to go on that learning journey with you. Someone who will give you honest, constructive feedback along the way.
Finding that first right customer, someone who's almost like a collaborator, that feels crucial to making this whole UODP thing work.
It really is. It's like finding a rare gem.
Which makes me wonder, what makes a customer the right fit for this kind of intense, iterative process?
Good question. And luckily, Kovalevsky gives us a few clues. First, they need to be large enough that their needs are somewhat representative of a bigger market.
Right. You don't want to build something so hyper-specific that it has no chance of broader appeal. You want a case study, not an outlier.
Exactly. Second, they need to be truly invested in your solution. And I don't just mean they need to be a paying customer. It's about finding someone who's as passionate about solving the problem as you are.
So they're almost like an extension of your team in a way.
Exactly. And that leads to the final, and maybe the most important, quality. They have to be communicative and willing to provide ongoing, honest feedback. That's where that partnership aspect really comes into play.
They have to be as committed to the learning process as you are.
Precisely. This has been great.
I know, right? This whole idea of embracing uncertainty, prioritizing learning, and finding those gem customers who can help you iterate your way to something truly innovative, it's definitely got me thinking differently about how we approach, well, everything. Huge thanks to you, dear listener, for sending this article our way. It's definitely changed how we view product development, and we hope it sparks some new ideas for you too. Until next time, keep those minds curious and those feedback loops open.